Winter, late 1890s. In Springfield, Massachusetts, the air carried the quiet memory of something that had begun inside the international YMCA training school. A wooden floor, 2 peach baskets, and a game that was never meant to travel. Yet somewhere in that gym, as the sound of the ball echoed between passing hands, the game had already begun to move, long before anyone realized it. Because games do not spread through rules alone. They spread through people, and people, unlike walls, do not stay in one place. The messengers of the game. The first carriers of basketball were not businessmen or promoters. They were students, young men who had learned the game under the quiet guidance of James Naismith. They left Springfield, carrying the experience with them like an unspoken language. They traveled to new cities, new towns, new countries. And wherever they went, they brought something simple, a ball, an idea, and a memory of how the game felt. Inside YMCA centers across the United States, and soon beyond, the game began to reappear. Not exactly the same, not perfectly but recognizable. A ball passed from hand to hand, a target raised above, a rhythm that invited movement. And just like that, BASKETBALL began its quiet journey across the world. The role of the YMCA, if the game had a vehicle, it was the YMCA. At the time, the YMCA was not just a local organization. It was a growing international network, focused on physical education, discipline, and character development. And basketball fit perfectly within its philosophy. It was controlled, structured, accessible, easy to teach. YMCA instructors began introducing the game in their centers across different countries. They carried with them not just the rules, but the spirit of the game. And so, in gymnasiums far away from Massachusetts, something familiar began to appear, the echo of a bouncing ball. The first steps into the world. By the mid-1890s, basketball had already crossed American borders. It reached Canada, where cold winters made indoor games not just useful but necessary. Soon after, it traveled to England, introduced through YMCA programs and educational institutions. In France, the game began to take shape in small gymnasiums, played by students who understood its rhythm instantly. Then came China, where missionaries and educators introduced the sport in schools, allowing it to grow quietly. And in Japan, the game found a place among disciplined students who adapted its structure into their own systems. The spread was not loud. There were no announcements, no global campaigns, only repetition, one court at a time. A game without language barriers. What made basketball different from many other sports was its simplicity. It did not require complex equipment. It did not depend on large fields. And perhaps most importantly, it did not rely on language. A player did not need to understand English to understand the game. They only needed to see it. A pass, a shot, a movement toward a shared goal. And that is how the game moved so effortlessly across cultures. Because it spoke through action. The adaptation of cultures. As basketball entered different countries, it began to change not in its core, but in its expression. Each culture shaped the game slightly. In some places, it became faster. In others, more disciplined. Some emphasized teamwork. Others highlighted individual creativity. Courts were different. Environments varied, but the essence remained untouched. A ball, a basket, a shared objective. And through that consistency, basketball became something rare. A global language with local accents. The rise of international competition. As the game continued to spread, something new began to emerge. Nations started to play not just within themselves, but against each other. By the early 20th century, basketball had become organized enough to allow international competition. Teams representing different cultures, systems, and interpretations of the game met on the same court, and for the first time, basketball became more than a shared activity. It became a global connection, a way for nations to interact, compete, and understand each other without needing translation. The formation of global structure. In 1932, something important happened. The FIBA was formed. It was a quiet but powerful step. For the first time, basketball had a global governing body. Rules became standardized. Competitions became organized.
The influence of professional leagues. As the world embraced basketball, professional leagues began to rise. Eventually, the creation of the National Basketball
Association transformed the sport into something widely visible. Games were broadcast. Players became global figures. Moments were shared across continents, and suddenly, a child in a distant country could watch the game and feel connected to it. This visibility accelerated the spread, not through instruction, but through inspiration, the symbol of the ball. Throughout this global journey, one symbol remained constant. The ball, simple, recognizable, universal, in every country. On every court, whether polished hardwood or cracked concrete, the ball meant the same thing. Opportunity, a chance to play, a chance to belong, a chance to become something more. It did not matter where you came from. Once the ball was in your hands, you understood the quiet truth of its spread. Basketball did not conquer the world. It was accepted by it because it did not impose complexity. It offered simplicity. It did not demand perfection. It invited participation, and perhaps, most importantly, it gave people something they already needed: connection. The return, the beginning. If you trace the journey back, from global arenas, from international tournaments, from millions of courts across continents, you arrive once again in that quiet gym in Springfield, Massachusetts. Not because it was forced outward, but because it carried something universal within it. The need to move, the desire to compete, the instinct to connect, and in the end, that is how it traveled. Not through borders, not through systems, but through people. One pass at a time, one game at a time, one quiet court at a time, until the sound of a bouncing ball was no longer just an echo in a gym, but a rhythm shared by the world.